stream up.
Savage.
Do 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 do. Do do do. There we go. Don't play the intro. Oi. No! Oh, what? Hey, what? Why are you being like that? Okay, hold on a second. Let's do this again. Okay. Let's try launching the game again.
Maybe the game will crash over and over again.
Oh god, please no.
Oh no, a book crashes.
Eh?
Because it's like a book.
Oh! There we go. Button's working now. There we go. They have DLC.
Yeah, oh no. No, I don't.
1, 2, 3. Okay, so. Alright. Let's continue on our way. We're at chapter 3. The dawn of the new year arrived. Right, there you go. Ah! Actually, it would help if I did a thing, and that's changing titles and shit. And there we go. That should
people
do it.
have watched the Mario movie.
Yeah.
Let's find like a leaked full film, full version of it. Probably not. Probably doesn't exist.
Hopefully that changed the category. Actually, 1 second. Okay. I have to double check this mic is fucking working. I know BS.
Okay.
It's fine.
Maybe the Mario movie has influenced.
What?
I don't know. I'm just saying random things at this point.
Yes, you are, sir. Anyway. It was February of 1865, and we finished eating breakfast. I was carrying a plate full of tea and opened the door to the common room. Tea's ready. I made my way around the room, pouring a cup of tea for each person there, making sure not to spill. He gave me a warm smile as I handed him his tea. Thank you. I felt a flush of pride at his words, even though I knew quite well that serving tea was hardly impressive. I would call it impressive. Tea is a skill of pouring and making sure you don't spill it. It is a skill. It is a real skill. Just the same, I felt as if I was helping out in a way, and that was a nice feeling. Then Hijikata spoke, and his words brought me back to the present.
雑魚寝してる連中かなり辛そうだしよ。
だな。前川邸で寝起きしてる連中なんて毎晩押し寿司みてえになりながら寝てやがるぜ。
They are sardines, and nobody can tell me otherwise.
あれじゃ疲れが取れねえだろうし、なんとかしてやりてえよな。
そんなこと言ったって僕たち新選組を受け入れてくれる場所なんてないでしょ。僕たち今日の嫌われ者だしね。
A person sitting beside Kondo pointed at the map spread upon the table.
西本願寺というのはどうかしら。
西本願寺ですと、先方の同意を得られるとは思えませんが。
でも数百人の大使が寝起きできるほど広い場所なんて他にないでしょ。それにあの場所ならいざという時も動きやすいと思うのだけど。
This man was named Kashitaro Ito, recruited by Heisuke a few months ago as the Shinsengumi's military advisor and deputy commander. He developed his notoriety teaching Hokushin Ito in his dojo, and he is known for his scholarliness.
それに西本願寺は以前長州老子をかくまっていたこともあると聞きますわ。我々が西本願寺に移れば老子たちは身を隠す場所を一つ失うことになります。
そこまで考えての選定というわけですか。なるほど。
Kondo seemed very impressed by Ito's suggestion, but a silent voice of protest arose.
僧侶の動きを武力で押さえつけるのはいかがなものかと思いますが。
Sanan has a point. Ito's brow twitched as if disturbed by the idea, and he faced Sanan-san directly.
自社を隠れ蓑にして好き勝手な振る舞いをしていたのは長州老子の方ではなくて、今日の治安を乱す不定老子に配慮して差し上げるなんて、三男さんもお優しいこと。
Jesus Christ, Ito. Ito's deflection of Sanan-san's words left a bitter taste in everyone's mouth, including Sanan-san.
尊上過激派を抑える必要があるという点に関しては同意しますが。
じゃあなんだ。切り合うときはやあやあ我こそはって名乗りを上げて正々堂々とやるべきだとでも言うつもりか。不定老子どもがそんな鎌倉武士みたいなご作法に付き合ってくれりゃいいがな。
三郎、口を慎みなさい。
おっと悪い。つい本音が出た。
The other man beside Ito was Saburo Miki, who joined at the same time as Ito. Allegedly, he was Ito's younger brother by blood. Still wonder which side that is.
皆さん方ごめんなさいね。この子は昔から口が悪くて。三男さんもお気を悪くなさらないでくださいな。あなたのような方も新選組を大きくしていく上では必要だと思いますし、たとえ左腕が使い物にならなくとも、その才覚と学識は隊のために大いに役立つはずですわ。
Can we all agree we all want to slap Ito at least a couple of times? Because he runs his mouth. Please. I watched the son bit his lip and act of restraint to Ito's sour words. Midget, I saw that. The tension was cut by another voice.
伊藤さん、今のはどういう意味だ。
Hijikata's voice was cold and sharp, like the sound of a blade sliding across a whetstone. Ito seemed taken aback and his eyes grew wide.
あんたが言うように、三男さんは優秀な論客だ。けどな、剣客としてもこの新選組に必要な人間なんだよ。
Hijikata only spoke when necessary. So it must have been something he truly believed. However,
ですが私の腕は
he couldn't even seem to bring himself to finish. It seems as though Hijikata realized his words were reminding Sanan of what he used to be, causing Sanan-san to curl his lips into a frown.
ごめん遊ばせ。私としたことが失言でしたわ。
He's not gonna keep his thoughts to himself.
三男さんは皆さん方の大切なお仲間ですものね。仲がよろしくて結構なことですわ。新たに入隊した大使たちも同じ気持ちでいてくれるといいのですけど。
Hijikata's eyes seethed with anger towards Ito. Kondo tried to relieve the tension by stepping in and clearing the air.
とりあえず豚書移転の件に関してはもう少し話し合ってから決めるということで。伊藤さん、この後お付き合いを願いますから。先ほどの件についてもう少し詳しい話をお聞きしたいので。
ええ、喜んで。
Seeing the two get up, Takeda followed right behind them.
近藤局長、私もご一緒して構いませんか？
いいとも。ぜひ君も伊藤さんの話を聞いて大いに見識を広めてくれたまえ。新選組幹部といえど剣術ばかりではいかんからな。これからは広い視野と深い知識を身につけねばな。
Kondo left the common room with Ito and Miki, however, who was still sat. What? Kondo left the common room with Ito and Miki, however, who still sat before us. He smirked coldly towards us and he slinked off to leave the common room. Okuta spoke once Miki's footsteps weren't audible.
まったく誰なのさ、あんな人たちを連れてきたのは。
犯人はまだ江戸にいるだろう。平助の野郎、帰ってきたらとっちめてやる。
伊藤さんは尊攘派なんだろう。長州の奴らと同じ考えの奴がよく新選組に入る気になったもんだな。
尊皇攘夷だからって長州と同一視されるのは心外らしい。そもそも尊皇とはとかなんとかわけのわからねえことを抜かしてやがったんだよ。近藤さんも近藤さんであっさり丸め込まれやがって。
近藤さんってお人よしですからね。ああいう口がうまくてお腹の中が真っ黒な人に騙されやすいんだよな。
その伊藤さんが参謀で弟が9番組組長か。めんどくさいことになったぜ。
Eventually, Hijikata approached Sanan-san, who weakly hung his head, facing the floor in shame.
三男さん、あんな奴の言うことなんざ気にするんじゃねえぞ。
Sanan-san laughed dryly and shook his head.
伊藤さんは学識も高く弁舌に優れ、剣の腕も確かな方ですよ。優秀な参謀の入隊でついに総長はお役御免というわけですね。
おい、三男さん。
Sanan-san left the room as Hijikata's voice trailed behind, echoing in the hall.
三男さんも気の毒にな。あの調子だから近頃は大使連中にも避けられちまった。
What? But why?
無理もねえだろう。どんな言葉をかけても全部悪く取られちまうし。何を言っても皮肉と嫌味しか返ってこねえから、大使たちも怯えちまって近づかねえんだよ。
Oh no. Poor Sanan-san. Even though I haven't been here as long as the captains, I know Sanan-san was so well liked by the other warriors before his injury.
土方さん、伊藤さんたちなんて適当な理由をつけてさっさと追い出しちゃってくださいよ。
Please, Hijikata, just so that I don't have to keep on agreeing with Okita.
あの人たちが来てから僕 毎晩嫌な夢ばっかり見るんですよね。
そんなことできるわけねえだろうが。
Fuck.
近藤さんはすっかり伊藤さんに心酔してるみてえだしな。伊藤さんと一緒に入隊してきた連中もそんな扱いをされりゃ黙っちゃいねえだろ。
役に立たない人だな。無理を通すのが鬼副長の役目でしょ。
んじゃてめえが副長やりゃいいだろうが。で、あいつらを追い出せ。
嫌に決まってるじゃないですか。そんなめんどくさいの。
The consensus was that Ito was not to be trusted, and it seems no one spoke in his defense. Why would you? Only one, during all of this, quietly sipped his tea. No. Saito quietly looked up at me and I poured more tea into his cup. So, what do you think about Ito? I mean, about Ito joining, that is.
さまざまな考えを持つ者が属してこそ、タイというのは広がりを見せるものだ。
So then...
だが無理に広げようとすると、内部から瓦解を始めることもある。
His words hung in the air, a dark omen for the future of the Shinsengumi. It was considerate of Ito to join, but his presence seemed to be a recipe for dissension. Dissension, we're going with that. If not outright disaster. The setting sun glowed through the windows with a warm, rich maroon, an ominous kind of beauty. It's cold. I came out into the yard and my body stopped due to the cold. Guess spring'll take a while. Yeah, spring is taking a while. It's April. There's wind outside. It's very cold in real life. Is it like that where you are, Isaac?
Yeah.
Ugh. The flowers
well,
are
actually,
out.
it's not that cold. I don't think it's cold right now. I don't know.
I think it's like 50 something outside, but it's still cold because there's fucking wind. It's like 15 mile per hour winds outside.
Mm-hmm.
But there's pretty flowers everywhere, despite it being like that. Hopefully it'll warm up, but I'm not ready for summer. I like having pockets. I wasn't too fond of Ito, but it was Sanan-san and his condition that truly worried me. I really wish his arm would just heal. That arm, or perhaps more accurately the lack of it, was the source of his change in personality. Still, as nice as it would be for Sanan-san's arm to simply start working again, that seemed like the stuff of a child's fable, not real life. That was when I remembered.
薬でも何でも使ってもらうしかないですね。三男さんも納得してくれるんじゃないかな。
そうじ。めったなこと言うもんじゃねえ。幹部が羅刹になってどうするんだよ。
Okuta was talking about the Shinsengumi having some secret serum back in the day. Judging from how they spoke of it, it's an item with circumstances. But... And I was not to know about the existence of that serum. If I were to look into it without approval, there was no doubt that I'd be punished. But I'm the daughter of a doctor. I'm pretty sure I had more knowledge on medicine than the men of the Shinsengumi did. We returned to our room. Perhaps it would be best to just return to my room. I didn't want to get in trouble for wandering around, but most of all, I didn't want to find myself in anyone's way. Even though I was worried about Sanan-san, maybe it's for the best for me to stay out of the way. Just as the sun dipped below the horizon, the compound exploded with activity. My worry increased tenfold. Did something happen? I waited for a few moments for the activity to settle down, but it did no such thing. Something was wrong, and I could feel it. I struggled against it for as long as I could, but eventually my curiosity got the better of me. There must be someone in the common room. I decided to ask someone what had happened.
まさか三男君が自ら薬に手を出してしまうとは。
たく、どいつもこいつも何してやがるんだ。三男さんから目を離すなってあれだけ言ったじゃねえか。
んなこと言われてもよ、薬を飲むとは思わねえだろ普通。あれを管理してたのは三男さんだったから、薬を持っててもおかしくはねえし。
小瓶一つぐらいなら懐に隠し持ってても気づかなかっただろうしな。確かにあの薬を使えば腕は治るかもしれねえだろうが、あれは失敗作なんだろう。飲んだ連中もみんな結局は血に狂っちまった。ってことは三男さんは。
I wonder what they meant by treatment. Occasionally, I hear the captains referring to something similar from time to time. So, did Sanan-san drink that thing?
三男総長は独自に薬の改良を続けていたと聞きます。理性を保ったまま腕の傷を治す。その成功にかけたのでしょうが、失敗を悟った三男総長は掃除の静止を聞かず自陣したと。
Suicide? The words were past my lips before I'd even thought them. As one, all eyes in the room turned toward me.
どうしてお前がここにいる？
The longer his cold gaze kept me pinned, the tighter my throat became, until I could barely breathe, let alone speak. I felt a strange combination of anxiety, suspicion, and animosity that I had felt before on the night I arrived at the headquarters of the Shinsengumi. Now, as then, I knew the meaning of that gaze.
トシ、そろそろ彼女にも聞いてもらった方がいいんじゃないか。彼女はコードーさんの娘だ。知る権利はあるだろう。
I felt my eyes go wide at the mention of my father's name. Why would my father's name come up here? Don't tell me he had something to do with this. Hijikata's gaze slid to Kondo, sporting an unpleasant grimace. After a moment, however, he gave a long, exasperated sigh and turned back to me.
先に言っておく。お前は新選組に必要ねえ人間だ。コードーさんを探す役には立つかもしれねえ。お前がいなくてもどうってことはねえ。もしおかしな真似をすれば即座に殺す。そいつをてめえの肝にしっかり命じてから話を聞け。
The intensity of Hijikata's statement felt like a sharp dagger pointed at my throat. I'm the daughter. The Shinsengumi only let me stay with them in the slight chance I'd come in handy when its time arose to search for my father. Although it wasn't their primary duty, the Shinsengumi had the watch for all manhunts. There's nothing left to tie me here, apart from my memories of the last year. Are you going to kill me? My words were flushed with worry, and Ichikata-san thinned his eyes like he was speaking to a servant.
まだ殺さねえよ。もっとも、いつ死のうと困らねえがな。
I was glad, I suppose, that I wasn't going to be killed, but I was still far from happy. I'd been with the Shinsengumi for nearly a year, and my position with them hadn't changed. The truth cut deep.
今までは君にも伏せていたのだが、コードさんはもともとここで薬の研究をしていてな。
You mean... I gulped audibly, and I carefully formulated what I was going to say in my head before I said it out loud.
I have to go.
Okay.
Right, see ya.
Bye-bye. The one Sanan-san took? When Kondo nodded, it was as if there was a great weight resting on him.
あの薬はもともと幕府の高官がここに持ち込んだものだ。何でも西洋との交易で手に入れたものだと聞かされている。
Curiosity swelled inside of me, and my head felt light from the anticipation. Still, I knew that digging deep is dangerous. These thoughts swirled.
人間の筋力と自然治癒能力を爆発的に高める西洋渡来の薬。あれを飲んだ者は野生の獣と渡り合うことも不可能ではなくなる。致命傷でなければ傷は立ちどころに塞がる。つまり首を落とされるか心臓を撃たれぬ限り戦い続けることができるのだ。
Does such a concoction really exist? I felt like I was hearing some sort of fairy tale.
ただし、あの薬には甚大な副作用がある。
A price?
あれを飲んだ人間は狂気に駆られ、人の血なしでは生きることさえできなくなるのだ。新選組の大使を実験台に薬の改良を進めていたのはコードさんだ。
My father? Somewhere deep in my heart, I knew my father had some connection with all of this. Knowing my father was involved with driving men mad, all I could do was wonder why. To perform experiments on the Shinsengumi. So, that night, in the alley, Saito nodded plainly.
薬を飲んだ大使たちは南部邸にいる。ヤギ邸では人目につくからな。血に触れぬ限り正気を失うことはない。我々にとっては御しやすい者たちだ。
Saito spoke quietly and indifferently. It was as if he talked about was a distant memory. Living with them for so long made me forget. There's still a line between myself and the Shinsengumi men that couldn't be crossed. And his coldness reminded me of this notion.
大丈夫か？顔色悪いぜ。
I'm alright.
無理すんな。こんな話を聞かされりゃ気分も悪くなるよな。
おしゃべりはその辺にしとけ。今は三男さんのことが先だろうが。
つってもどうするんだ。三男さん死にかけてるじゃねえか。あの
薬はここに持ち込まれたばかりの頃とは違う。まだ狂うと決まったわけじゃねえ。薬が効いてるんならどんな怪我でも治るはずだからな。
Ichikata-san felt like he was restrained by saying this, as if he was trying to keep his hopes low.
近藤さん、あんたは三男さんの様子を見てきてくれるか。今夜生きるか死ぬか狂うかの瀬戸際だろうからな。
うん、言ってこよう。確か彼の部屋には掃除もいるのだったな。
Kondo nodded deeply, then stood and walked toward the room.
三男さんの部屋へは誰も近づけるな。特に伊藤藩の連中はな。
ああ、わかってる。
新橋、前川邸の様子を見てきてくれるか。
わかった。
As he passed, Nagakura's eyes met mine for an instant, and his gaze In them, I saw the same hostility felt on the night I'd first arrived, and they were filled with doubt and suspicion towards me.
斉藤は中庭で待機しろ。伊藤一派の警戒と牽制を頼む。御意。
Eventually, Hijikata faced his gaze to me.
雪村、お前も今夜は幹部のそばにいる。
It seemed as though his suggestion wasn't out of worry for my well-being, but rather that it wasn't a wise idea for me to be wandering around.
裏の南部邸には絶対に行くんじゃねえぞ。連中、夜は気が立ってるからな。
I bowed slightly, but even with their warnings, I would be limited. Where should I go? Oh my god, we're picking the one option! Guide says go back to my room, and I have never picked this option before, so, here we go. I felt like it didn't belong anywhere, so I decided to return to my room. However, there was no way I could sleep tonight given the circumstances. I was alone in my room, and the images kept returning, no matter how hard I tried to forget. Before I knew it, dawn was almost breaking. I wonder if any of the others were awake. I slowly sauntered to the common room, and I saw a light flickering, sensing someone inside. There, I saw Nagakura standing alone in the room. You're still up, Nagakura?
こっちはまだ見張りの途中なんだよ。そっちこそ寝られなかったみたいだな。
Yeah. I felt wrong that I intruded upon Nagakura, and he kneeled, brooding intensely over something, and I felt wrong to strike a conversation with him. As I stood watching him, Nagakura eventually opened up to me.
昔自分から飲んだ幹部がいてな。でもまあ、その人も失敗したらしくて、結局は死んじまったんだけどよ。
That's new information, I think.
三男さんはそれを知ってたのに。
After muttering those words, Nagakura fell silent. It was clear today hurt everyone deeply. I am glad he's alive, though. I'm glad he's alive, though, even at the moment. Nagakura's eyes widened.
そうだよな。今は三男さんが生きてることを喜ばなくちゃならねえよな。こんな大事なことを気づかせてくれてありがとうよ。
Nagakura chuckled, then nudged his fingers under my chin.
さすが医者の娘だよな。俺みたいに切って貼っただけの男とはわけが違うぜ。
He admits he thinks about fighting everyone. Nagakura! His statement kind of had nothing to do with me being a doctor's daughter, but the sentiment was cute. Knowing Nagakura was a little more cheerful.
つまんねえことを話して悪かったな。
Oh, it's no problem at all. I'm happy just knowing that I was of some use to you.
そう言われるとなんかこそばゆいな。こんな遅くまで本当にありがとうよ。俺はもう一回りしてくるからちゃんと寝るんだぜ。そういえばなんでここに来たんだ？
I had a hunch people were still awake, so I figured I could fix some snacks for everyone.
今は飯食ってる場合じゃねえからさ。朝になったら山ほど食うから大丈夫だ。
I see. Then, please, be careful.
おう。じゃあ行ってくるぜ。
With that said, Nagakura walked back to the Maikawa house. There wasn't much time left until morning, but I did my best to crawl into bed to get some sleep. And so the long night broke with this music. I need some water. Shit, what event is next? I don't remember. The captains and the Shinsengumi gathered in the common room. The room collectively breathed a sigh of relief.
で、どうなんだ三男さんの様子は。
今はまだ寝てる。静かなものだよ。
今までの大使たちみたいになっちまってるのか、それとも。
Inoue simply shook his head.
確かなことは目を覚ますまでわからんね。見た目は昨日までと変わらないんだが。
Suddenly then, the door slid open.
おはようございます、皆さん。ご機嫌いかがかしら？
うげ、伊藤さん。
うげとはご挨拶ですのね。皆さん、お顔の色が優れない様子ですけど。
そりゃ、朝っぱらからあんたの顔見たせいに決まってるだろうが。
まあ、長倉くんったら冗談がお上手ですこと。
Ito dismissed Nagakura's snide remark, and he turned to face the standing warriors.
皆さんの顔色がよろしくないのは、もしかして昨晩の騒ぎと関わりがあるのかしら？
いや、だな。
Desperately, Kondo's eyes flew around the room as if looking for someone to offer an excuse, because we all know that Kondo can't lie.
よし、ごまかせさの。
あ、俺か？実は昨日。
大根役者は出しゃばらないでくれるかな。そういうのだったらもっと得意な人がいるじゃない。
Okata turned to Saito expectantly, and the latter spoke up at once.
伊藤参謀がお察しの通り、昨晩豚書内にて事件が発生しました。
まあ、事件ですって？
はい。ですが我々もまだ全容を把握できてはいない状況です。今の時点での説明は余計な誤解を招くばかりかと。ですので今夜にでも場を設け、詳しくお伝えさせていただきたく存じます。
そういうことですの。事情は分かりましてよ。今夜のお呼ばれ、心待ちにしていますわ。では、ごめん遊ばせ。
Ito brandished another strange smile, stood, nodded, and left the room promptly. Also, I remember the word Dewa! I think. Dewa is basically well then. I think. Always a chance I could be wrong. I'm slowly learning things.
なんとか見逃してもらえたみたいだね。
What do you mean?
伊藤さんはなんだかんだで頭が回る人だからな。幹部が勢ぞろいしてる場に三男さんだけいねえんだ。あの人絡みで何かあったってことぐらいすぐ感づくだろ。
Oh. Ito had likely guessed at what took place, but decided not to press the issue. I had looked up just in time to see Sanan-san shuffle through the door. Sanan-san!
そんな化け物を見るような目で見られても困りますよ。
三男さん、起きてていいのかい？
少し気だるいですがね。これも薬の副作用でしょう。あの薬を飲んでしまうと昼間動くことが困難になりますから。
Sanan-san looked a little pale, but it didn't look too difficult for him to stand and speak. But if it's hard for him to move during the day...
私はもう人ではありません。
Those words sunk our hearts heavily. Even the captains fell silent to his solemn admission.
いや、三男君、君が生きていてくれてよかった。我々はそれだけで十分だと思う。
Kondo stood and grabbed Sanon's shoulders tightly, his expression bright and endearing. Again, Dad is just glad that his son is alive. Tears nearly welled in his beaming eyes.
それで腕の方はどうなんです？治ったんですか？
まだ本調子ではありませんからね。自分でもよくわからないのですね。
He lifted his left arm, the arm that before had hung limp at his side, and flexed his hand. It didn't look any different than before his injury.
治っているようですね。少なくとも不便がない程度には。
Thank goodness. In spite of the chaos from last night, his wish to use his arm once more came true. However...
あの薬を飲んだってことは昼間動けねえようになっちまったんだろう。それなのにタイムに参加なんてできるのか？
His voice was calm, almost careless.
解決策はあります。私が死んだことにすればいい。これから私は薬の成功例として羅刹を束ねていこうと思っています。サンナンさん、それ本気で言ってるのか？あんた自分が何を言ってるのか分かってるのかよ？分かっていますと。長倉君、君こそ忘れたのですか？我々は薬の存在を伏せるよう幕府から命じられているのですよ。私が死んだことにすれば今までのように薬の存在を隠し通すことができる。それにもし薬の持つ副作用を消すことができるのだとすれば、それを使わない手はないでしょう。
They seemed to be against Sanan-san's idea, though no one said anything. Who would want to co-sign a friend to a life of secrecy, lived in shadows? But
薬の実験は幕府からのお達しでもあるしな。そうするしかないか。
まあ、三男さんが自分で選んだ道ですし、止めたって聞く人じゃないですよね。
よくわかっていますね。その通りですよ。
Hijikata-san scoffed at Sanan-san's suggestion, and bitterness frothed from his words.
豚書移転の話、冗談じゃ済まされなくなった。三男さんを伊藤派の目から隠すには広い豚書が必要だ。ここじゃ狭すぎる。
同意します。薬の研究を続けるのであればなおのこと移転を急ぐべきかと。
よし、ろくに寝てねえとこ悪いが話し合いを始めさせてもらうぜ。雪村、お前は部屋に戻ってろ。ろくに寝てねえだろ。
Okay, understood. Please excuse me. I bowed to everyone and left the common room. I'm happy that Sanan-san was safe, but a whole flurry of new concerns arose. Learning of my father's horrible work. What will become of me? Will I be safe? Such thoughts buzzed heavily in my head as I walked back to my room. June 1865. Our emperor had passed, and our year moved from the 2nd of Ganji to the 1st of Kyo. It was 3 months since we'd moved to the headquarters to Nishi Honwanji. There's a lot more room, but... more room meant, well, further to walk. I walked through it almost every day for weeks, and I was finally beginning to learn my way around. As I turned the corner near the back of the compound, I caught sight of someone sitting in the shadows. There you are, Sanan-san. Your food's ready.
Ah, 君でしたか。ありがとう。
The snow disappeared, the cherry blossom bloomed and fled, and now the swallows and the heat came. Sanan-san and I exchanged a pair of smiles, and I held out my hands to let the breeze brush across them. It's really gotten warm lately.
ええ。まあ、今の私には風より日差しの強さの方が勘に触りますがね。
Really? I didn't think the sun was particularly strong that day, but to Sanan-san, who hid in the shadows and out of sight during the day, it must have been unbearable. Thinking back to the night of the incident, I remember Sanan-san transformed into a being with white hair, eyes lusting for blood. Technically not. This is an inconsistency, actually. Brain, remember this. Remember this for later, Brain. But looking at his peaceful smile now made it hard to imagine such a night was real. If someone told me it was all a bad dream, I wouldn't have believed it. It wasn't a dream, though, and Sanan-san spent his days... spends his days hiding from the sunlight and from others. I have definitely tapped into the Shinsengumi's secrets. For just a moment, the sun lit on Sanan-san's hair. I don't know if it was a trick of the light, or simply my mind being foolish, but in that moment his hair was a brilliant white.
どうかしましたか？幽霊でも見るような目つきで人を見るのは良いこととは思えませんが。
No, nothing at all. He looked perfectly normal now, of course. Surely, I thought, I must have simply imagined it. Sanan-san had become the same creature as the men I encountered on my first night in Kyoto. And here, right in front of me, he stood. The fear of the night cast a shadow over my heart. It was unnerving. Heisuke and I made our way through the crowded as usual streets of Kyoto at a brisk pace. You know, I haven't gone on a patrol with you in quite a while, Heisuke.
ああ、そうかもな。俺、長いこと江戸に行ってたし。俺の留守中どうだった？新八さんとか佐野さんにいじめられたりしなかったか？
Everything was fine, and they were kind to me.
そっか。ならいいけど。親父さんの行方はどうなんだ？手がかりとか見つかったか？
None at all.
やっぱ見つからねえか。俺も江戸に戻った時、お前の家の様子を見に行ってみたんだけどな。人が戻ってきた様子はなかったし、どこに行っちまったんだろうな。
The somberness of Heisuke's expression started to rub off on me. Now I was depressed. Oh. Thank you for taking the time to look anyway.
いや、別に礼を言われるようなことじゃねえって。そもそもお前が今みてえに自由に外に出られねえのも、元はといえば俺たちの
Heisuke? Heisuke stopped himself mid-sentence, which was jarring. Ever since he returned from Edo, he looked glum. Hey, Heisuke? How about you? It's been a while since you were in Kyoto. Does it seem different from Edo?
そうだな。街も人も結構変わった気がする。
Huh? I wonder what was going through his head. It's definitely not head empty, I can tell you one thing. Did something happen to him in Edo? His sudden change of character confused me. Heisuke's head jerked up slightly and he looked across the street. He stood on his toes and waved.
おい、ソージ、そっちの様子はどうだった？特に何も、いつも通りだね。
Okita was out on patrol as well, although his route took him through a different part of the city.
でも、将軍上洛の時には忙しくなるんじゃないかな。
The Shogun's coming to visit Kyoto?
そう、近藤さんも張り切ってるよ。近藤さん、家持公のことをすごく尊敬してるから。
Ah, I see. I hope it turns out well. Right, Heisuke?
ああ、まあ、近藤さんはそうだろうな。
Huh? Something had really gotten into him. I glanced at Okita to see if he noticed anything. Okita? Are you alright?
平気だよ。ちょっと風邪をひいちゃったみたい。
Ah, I see. Well, please take care of yourself. I have medicine to treat colds, so I'll give you some when we return.
そう。ありがとう。君でもごくたまに役に立つことがあるんだね。
Soji. Shut up. What's the matter? Okita's eyes looked past me, and suddenly something caught his attention off to the side.
おい小娘、断るとはどういう了見だ？
やめてください。話して。
民草のために日々上位を論ずる我ら志士に尺の一つや二つ自分からするのが当然であろうが。
Across the street, a clump of perhaps 3 or 4 men were harassing a young girl. Okita! Heisuke!
分かってるって。お前はここで待ってろ。
But it appeared that Okita got to them first.
やれやれ。上位って言葉も君たちに使われるんじゃかわいそうだよ。
The usual crowd shuffled away from Okita and the men as quickly as they could. No one wanted to be near the sight of unsheathed blades. The Ronin's eyes found Okita's jacket and the men stiffened.
その羽織、新選組か。
知ってるなら話が早いな。どうする？
His lips curled into a predatory smile as his hand gripped his sword. There was no mirth in that rictus grin, and the Ronin's faces grew much paler. Their moods were not totally deflated yet, as the ringleader made one more attempt.
いいからとっとと失せろって。
The sight of 2 Shinsengumi blue jackets standing shoulder to shoulder was enough to deter the men.
貴様ら、覚えておれ。
The last of the color drained from their faces and they turned tail and ran.
俺たちを見てとっとと逃げ出すぐらいなら最初からあんな真似するなっての。
You aren't going to go after them and arrest them.
どんな罪で？君って意外と過激だな。
I didn't really mean it like that.
助けてくださってありがとうございました。私、南雲薫と申します。
I watched as the girl gave Okita a quick bow. She was so refined, so ladylike. Even dressed like a girl, I doubted I could ever be as elegant as her. I only just begun to feel sorry for myself when suddenly I felt a hand on my arm. Okita!
いいから、この子の横に立って。
He shoved me next to the girl we just rescued, then stepped back to stroke his chin thoughtfully. Okita? I glanced nervously towards the girl and attempted to smile kindly under the circumstances. The smile she gave me in return was beautiful, but there was something about it that seemed odd. She seems familiar.
やっぱりよく似てるね、二人とも。
We look alike? That's when I finally realized. She was identical to whom I saw in the mirror.
そっか。俺は全然似てないと思うけどな。
Heisuke.
いや、似てるよ。きっとこの子が女装したらそっくりになると思うな。
沖田さん、この方困ってらっしゃいますよ。
I had to say something. But what? Perhaps she saw through my confusion, or perhaps there was something else.
きちんとお礼をしたいのですけれど、今は所用がありまして。ご無礼、ご容赦くださいね。このご恩はまたいずれ。新選組の沖田総司さん。
With that, the girl who called herself Kaoru disappeared into the crowds of Kyoto, although the uneasiness created by her presence remained.
おいおい、ありゃ掃除に気でもあるんじゃねえの？今のがそう見えたんなら、平助は一生佐野さんに勝てないよね。どういう意味だよ？
Their back and forth continued, but my mind was elsewhere. Last night's rain left a number of puddles on the road, and when I looked into them, I saw a strange girl who looked just like me. Kaoru, ne? Winds caught the surface of the puddle, sending a flurry of ripples across it. I'm coming! I turned and ran towards Heisuke and Okita, already on their way back to headquarters. Supposedly with their men behind them. I assume. Because they usually go out on patrols with their own division. So in this case, Division 1 and Division 8. Water! The temple was much larger than the compound in Mibu, as advertised. The whole Shinsengumi could gather in the common room with space to spare. As Kondo spoke, his voice echoed grandly throughout the hall. Standing before Kondo were the many proud men under his leadership, with glowing expressions.
皆も徳川第14代将軍徳川家茂公が上洛されるという話は聞き及んでいると思う。その上洛に伴い公が二条城に入られるまで新選組総力をもって警護の任に当たるべしとの要請を受けた。
将軍校の警護を新選組が？
こりゃとんでもねえ大出世だな。
池田屋や金門の辺の活躍でお偉いさん方も俺たちの働きを認めざるを得なかったんだろうよ。
警護中は文字通り僕らの刀に国の行く末がかかってるってことですか？
そういうことだ。てめえら気合い入れていけよ。
将軍校の警護とはまた大役ですな。
本当に三男さんが生きていればどれほどお喜びになったことか。
Shut up, Ito.
本当に惜しい方を亡くしましたわね。
Shut up, Ito. Ito wiped crocodile tears away from his eyes with a silk handkerchief. Ito and his followers were told Son died. In fact, the entire incident surrounding his transformation had been covered up. Only a few of the men of the Shinsengumi knew the truth.
伊藤さん、こたびの幕命を立派に成し遂げることこそ亡くなった三男君が真に望んでいることだと思います。
分かっていますわ。私たちの名を天下に広く知らしめる絶好の機会ですものね。
ともあれ、これから忙しくなりますな。
まずはタイの編成を考えねば。とりあえず俺とトシ、それからソジ。
待ってくれ近藤さん。ソジは今回外してやってくれねえか。
なぜだ？
なんでも風邪が治らねえとかでな。養生しろって散々言ってるのによ。
本当か？大丈夫なのかソジ？
大した風邪じゃないんですけどね。土方さんは大げさなんですよ。
何言ってやがるんだ。さっきも咳してただろうが。
それ薬を売りつけるための工場ですか？何を言われても石田三役は買いませんよ。
そんなんじゃねえよ。いいから言う通りにしろ。
I gave Okuta some pretty strong medicine not too long ago. I wonder if that didn't work. Or maybe he doesn't have a cold, but rather he's inhaling dust from the lack of cleaning here. Then suddenly someone raised his hand.
平介、どうしたんだね。何か気になることでもあるのか？
あのさ、近藤さん。実は俺もちょっと調子が。
なんだ、平介も風邪か？気をつけないといかんぞ。せっかくの晴れ舞台、全員揃って家持子をお迎えしたかったのだがな。
すいません。
ああ、いや、責めたわけではないんだ。体調は大事だからな。いずれまた機会もあるであろうし、二人にはその時存分に働いてもらいたい。
Kondo and Hijikata continued to discuss their formation, but suddenly Hijikata turned to me.
そういや雪村、お前はどうするんだ
？What?
ほうけてるんじゃねえよ。お前は警護に参加するのかって聞いてんだ。
I can go too?
無論構わんとも。君も今や新選組の一員と言っても過言ではない。ぜひ参加してくれ。
Could I really go? I hesitated for a moment, confused, and Okita laughed.
まあ言ってもいいんじゃない？そんなに危険もなさそうだしね。長州藩士は今日に出入りできねえから、切った張ったの騒ぎにはならねえだろうし。
What should I do? I'm just a little concerned about a person like me who's not a warrior coming along, but I was feeling emotionally strained with no leads on my father turning up on rounds. I'll go!
よし、わかった。お前には伝令やら使いっ走りを頼むことになると思うがな。
See, every time I see that face on Hijikata and is aimed towards me, I sense the mischievousness. It's too real.
こき使ってやるから覚悟しとけ。
Fuck. In the early days of the Tokugawa shogunate, Nijo Castle was a place for the shogun to stay on his way to the capital. It's been a while since a shogun actually stayed in it, though. We'd met the shogun on the road and begun our escort about 30 minutes earlier and arrived at the castle relatively recently. By now, I imagine Kondo, Nagakura, Inoue, and the men were greeting the officials and other important people in the shogun's retinue, whatever that word is. I still haven't figured it out. Well, I've got a job to do too. It was my job to tell soldiers when to change shifts and to carry messages back and forth. A glorified errand girl, in other words. I don't see myself as being useless, though. I think. I've come with a message.
なんだ、お前が伝達係かよ。ここは遊び場じゃねえんだぜ。
Well, I'm not here to play.
へえ、そうかよ。じゃあまともな刀も刺してないお前が何しに来てるんだ？
I've come here to do what I can do. Would you mind if we stop playing games?
言ってみろ。
The chief is currently going around, paying his respects to the people in the castle. Everyone else continue with the guard.
わかった。確かに伝達は聞いたぜ。
Huh? That's it? It's that simple?
おい。なんだそのバカ面は。俺が伝達を聞いたのがそんなにおかしいか？
Oh, well, no, I just...
仕事は仕事だからな。市場を挟むつもりはねえんだよ。ほら、伝達は聞いたんだ。さっさと行け。
Okay. Miki and I never really got on the best of terms, but... maybe he's a responsible person. I don't know how I feel about that. Also, I don't know what route we actually learn more about Miki. If we do. After he shooed me away, I continued attending to my duties as a messenger. In the surroundings of Nijo Castle, I can see the warriors wearing a white uniform, which was different than the afternoon uniform. They don't seem too nervous. But I guess it makes sense. Some of the Imperial Nationalist extremists were driven out of Kyoto, and many warriors fled. There's no way anything would happen. A sudden chill ran down the length of my spine. I froze. I knew the feeling. A length of cold steel seeking entry into your flesh, eyes shining with a lust for blood and violence. Since I began living with the Shinsengumi, I felt it more than once. Bloodlust. My eyes were drawn to the roof, where no one would think to look. A large wall cast a shadow, shielding a section of the roof from the moonlight. There they stood. You!
気づいたか。さほど鈍いというわけでもないよ。
They looked very distinctive, unlike any soldiers I'd seen before. But 3 sets of piercing eyes scattered my thoughts, making it hard to think. I had recognized them. Now I had to put names to faces. Chikage Kazama. Kyuju Amagiri. Kyo Shiranui. They were connected to both the Satsuma and the Chosu. But they'd made an effort to impede the Shinsengumi at Ikedaya, and again at Hamaguri. Why are you here?
そのなぜっつうのはどうやってここに立ち入ったかを聞いてやがんのか。だったら答えは簡単だ。俺ら鬼の一族には人間が作る障害なんざ意味をなさねえんだよ。
我々はある目的のためにここに来た。君を探していたのです。
What? My heart was pounding so hard it could burst. Why do these men know my name? What the fuck is going up upstairs? I hear banging. I don't understand. A demon? What do you mean? What are you here for? No, you must be joking.
鬼を知らぬだと本気で言っている。
He stepped forward, cloaked in shadows. When Amagiri spoke, it was calm and peaceful, as if he were reasoning with a frightened child and there's a motorcycle outside going broom broom. Is it gone? I think it's gone.
君は負った傷がすぐに癒えませんか。
I held my breath.
波の人間とは思えぬほど怪我の治りが早くありませんか。
How does he know my secret? I've never revealed it to anyone before. Well, Words struggled to come to mind, and just as I was about to deny their accusations...
ああ？なんなら血ぶちまけて証明した方が早いか？
Shiranui's gun glistened eerily.
貴様貴重な女鬼に傷を負わせるつもりか。
んなこと言われてもこいつの往生際が悪いんだからしょうがねえだろうが。
After Kazuma glared at Shiranui, his eyes drifted towards the kodachi on my hip again.
多くは語らぬ。鬼を示す生徒、東の鬼が持つ子たち。証拠としては十分です。
My family name? What was wrong with Yukimura? I didn't understand what he was saying, and a cold sweat started inching down my spine.
言っておく。お前を連れて行くのに同意など。女を貴重だ。共に来い。
His hand stretched out from the darkness, pale and grasping like the tentacle of some hideous subterranean monster. Then a blade flickered through the night.
おいおい、合いびきならもう少し色気のある場所を選んだ方がいいんじゃねえか。
またお前たちか。田舎の犬は目端だけは聞くと見える。
それはこちらのセリフだ。
Hanada! Saito! My legs almost collapsed, as if the now shattered tension was the only thing keeping me standing. I teetered backwards, my balance momentarily lost. A strong sinewy hand caught me and pulled me back, its grip hard as steel.
下がってろ。
Hijikata-san. One hand guided me around behind him as the other drew his sword.
将軍の首でも取りに来たかと思えば、こんなガキ一人に一体何の用。
将軍の貴様らも今はどうでもいい。これは我ら鬼の問題だ。
鬼だと。
His eyes narrowed. Hijikata-san seemed perplexed by Kazuma's statement, as if contemplating the possibility of its truth.
こいつの面を拝むのは金門の変以来だ。
腐れんってとこか。大して嬉しくもねえがな。
再会という意味ではこちらも同じくだ。だが何の考えもわかんな。
我々の邪魔立てをするつもりですか。ならば。
The tension was so thick in the air that I could scarcely breathe. They were a powder keg ready to explode. Even the slightest movement could set them off. It wasn't like I could do much. But I still wanted to help them, so I grabbed my sword.
副長たちの心配は無用だ。
Yamazaki? When did you...
副長の命だ。君はこのまま俺が豚書まで連れて行く。
Then you're telling me to run away?
その通りだ。君がここにいてもできることは何もない。
I mean, he may be right, but... Yo, we're staying. We're staying to watch the fight again. I'm going to stay here.
雪村か。君は状況を理解していない。ここに残って何ができる。
I know that staying here might not be the smartest idea, but... They called me a demon and told me to come with them. I still didn't know what they'd meant. I needed to know the truth.
君にも譲れない理由があるのだろうな。だが、それは俺も同じこと。副長の命を遂行する。それが俺にとって己を貫くということだ。
What? Yamazaki reached for my arm, ready to take me with him by force, but... The gun Shiranui held was pointed towards Yamazaki. Don't hurt my best boy!
Hey, hey, 待てって。お姫さんはここに残るっつってんだろ。
Also, Shiranui, again, you do not have the right to call me a princess at this point in time. You might later, but not now.
振られたのに邪魔してんじゃねえよ。
With his spear, Harada tried to pierce Shiranui in the heart, but Shiranui easily dodged his strike.
時に拙速はコーチに勝りますが、知らぬいの手の速さも考えものですね。
そういうあんたも止めなかったようだが。
Saito and Amagiri maneuvered nearly into striking. Saito and Amagiri maneuvered nearly into striking distance of one another. Saito drew his sword and attempted to strike at Amagiri. Amagiri saw through his movements instantly and dodged the incoming blade. Hijikata-san screamed, his voice filled with frustration. Huh. Didn't move, apparently. I knew leaping into the fight would do everyone, including myself, more harm than good. After all, if Okita and Heisuke couldn't manage, how could I? Just then, someone came into my line of vision.
心配すんな。
なんだ、邪魔する気か。命っつうのはもっと大事に使うもんだぜ。
As he spoke, I could see Shiranui loosen his gun from its holster. He finished by tossing a smug grin at Harada, who returned it in kind. Despite all of Harada's bravado, too much distance between them remained, with the gun's advantage.
俺様の銃とお前の槍、この間合いでどっちが有利か見てわかんねえほどバカなのか。
Harada. Ooh! Tell him to watch out? Oh god, what does this do? Oh god. Please don't end up hurting Harada. I can't take that anymore. Watch out!
安になるなよ。俺に任せておけ。
In a swift motion, he swept his foot across the ground, throwing a small cloud of dust. He threw a small rock straight at Shiranui's gun.
バカはお前だ。余裕かまして油断してんじゃねえよ。
面白い。
Shiranui dodged the rock, and in that moment where his gun wavered off its target, Harada charged. Oh shit! They froze, mirror images of one another, each with a weapon poised to deliver a killing blow. I could see their intensity rolling off of them in shimmering waves, like heat from a roaring furnace. Furnace, damn it! Even their faces were mirrored, each with a playful grin, as if they were only friends having some fun. Yeah! Yeah! Also, if you haven't seen the back, how Shiranui's outfit is from the back, now you can see it because of this image. Surely shows us how he looks like.
その銃、飾りじゃねえ。なんで使うの？
はっ、決まってんだろ。銃声を聞きつけたつまんねえ奴らに水を刺されたくねえからな。
If the spear tip moved even a fraction of an inch, or Shiranui's finger slipped on the trigger, that would be it. I froze, watching who would yield or die first. It was Shiranui who lowered his gun.
なかなか楽しかったぜ。今度は心置きなく銃をぶっ放せるときに会いてえもんだ。
男からの誘いなんざごめんだぜ。
Harada! Both men stepped back, their fight clearly finished.
これ以上の戦いは無意味ですな。長引いて今日が乗っても困るでしょう。
それ、俺様への当てつけか？こう見えても引き際は心得てるつもりだぜ。今日が乗ると止まんねえのはむしろ。
Shiranui looked towards Kazuma as he spoke.
確かにこれ以上の長いは無駄か。あくまでも今日は真偽を確かめに来ただけだ。
むざむざ逃がすとでも思っているのか。
虚勢はやめておけ。貴様らはまだしも騒ぎを聞きつけて集まった雑魚どもは何人死ぬか知れたものではないぞ。
Kazuma and his companions were no doubt powerful. His words held arrogance. We knew he spoke truth. They leapt silently, fading into the darkness. But as he did, Kazuma spoke to me one last time, his red eyes piercing me as they glared.
近いうちに迎えに行く。楽しみに待っている。
He was far out of arm's reach, but his words nearly brushed against my cheek, cold and threatening. A shiver ran up my spine. I crumpled to the floor.
大丈夫か？
I'm fine.
お前、嘘つくの下手だな。顔真っ青だぜ。しばらくそのまま座ってろ。歩けなかったら俺がおぶってやるからよ。
Thank you. For a while, Hijikata stared deeply and harshly towards the darkness.
おい、お前。あいつらに狙われる心当たりでもある。
I hesitated. They had said I was one of them. Kazuma had invited me to go with him. Had he been telling the truth? I didn't know. I'm not sure. There was really nothing more I could say. Word of this incident spread the ranks of the Shinsengumi quickly in another form.
おい、侵入者がいたらしいな。幹部がガン首揃えて何やってやがったんだ。
侵入者？私は聞かされていない。間違った情報なのでは？
おいおい、俺が嘘を言ってるってのか？
嘘とは言っていない。君が勘違いをしていると言っているだけだ。本当にいたのなら、まず私に連絡があるはず。それがなかったのだから、偽の情報に決まっている。
そうかよ。本当だったらただじゃ済まさねえからな。
Supposedly, they stormed to Hijikata-san's room, but he told them the incident of the intruder was a misunderstanding. The only people that were notified of Kazuma's infiltration were only a handful of the captains. So, in the eyes of the public, the infiltration of Nijo Castle didn't happen. Since then, once the rest of the men returned, there was a meeting among the captains. The subject of that meeting was the three men at Nijo Castle: Chikage Kazuma, Kyuju Amagiri, and Kyo Shiranui. They called themselves demons, and their previous encounters with the Shinsengumi suggested they were somehow involved with the Satsuma and Chosu. The Satsuma were the most powerful domain in the opposition domain, and the Chosu are publicly expressive of their dissent towards the shogunate. The Chosu are essentially enemies of the court. I didn't know how the three men are supposedly affiliated with the domains, but it was abundantly clear that they are not to be dealt with carelessly. There was another problem, however. Why had they come for me? They said I was one of them and knew about my family name and my kodachi. But how? My name is Chizuru Yukimura. I am the daughter of my father and my mother. I am a normal girl, nothing out of the ordinary. But who am I? June 1864. Oh no. We know what time it is. The compound was alive with noise and movement. I passed several soldiers in the halls, each one of them excited about something. What was going on? Ito? Is something wrong?
どうしたもこうしたもありませんよ。私がなんであんな野蛮人どもと同じ部屋で肌をさらさなくてはならないの？
Ito's explanation was useless. I was completely confused. Is there something going on today? Ito did his best to collect himself, shakily adjusting his hair and clothing before he spoke.
将軍上洛の時に近藤さんと意気投合したお医者様が本所にいらしてるのよ。
Oh! Yeah, no! Energy drink on my hand. No, no. Sticky. Hold on. Hold on. I need to fix the mistake. Fixing mistake. I have hand sanitizer. The hand sanitizer will help get rid of the stickiness. Or make it worse. Honestly, I can't tell you. I think it's getting rid of it, yeah. It won't be sticky anymore. There we go. Better. That feels so much better. There we go.
大使たちの健康診断を行うとかの名目で。
With a disdainful sniff, he glared pointedly across the hall towards the area he'd just left. The men were getting physical checkups, that much I knew. Given my particular situation, I've been exempted by the captains, who also gave me special instructions to stay away.
あのハゲ坊主じゃなくてお医者様ったら皆の前で私に着物を脱げとおっしゃるのよ。拒んだら無理やり脱がせようとするし、それにあの大使たちの態度、まるで野獣みたいでしたわ。
Savages seemed a bit strong. At any rate, perhaps I should go see just what a physical entailed. I was a doctor's daughter, after all. What's this doctor's name?
確か松本良順とか言ったかしら。
What? Wait, Matsumoto sensei.
何よその反応。知り合いなの？
When I first came to Kyoto, my plan was to find Matsumoto. My father told me that I could rely on the man if I ever needed anything. Unfortunately, he was away on business when I'd arrived, and after that, I'm going to go watch the physical exams. There was no time to waste. Teh. Is this it? I could hear loud voices from inside. Oh! Oh! The scene froze me in place. I'm ready.
よし、次の人。
おう、俺の番だな。一丁頼ます先生。ふっ、どうすか。剣術一筋で鍛えに鍛えたこの体。
新八さんの場合、体は頑丈だもん。見てもらうのは頭の方だよな。
あ？余計なこと言ってると締めるぞ、ヘスケ。
うん、長倉新八と。よし、問題ない。次。
先生、もっとちゃんと見てくれよ。
いやいや、申し分ない健康体だ。
新八、後ろが使えてるんだからさっさと終わらせろって。
What the fuck is going on upstairs? There's so much noises.
そうじゃなくってよ。もっと他に見るところがあんだろ。鍛え抜かれた鋼のようなこの筋肉とか、仁王像みたいに屈強そうな体型とか。
診察は見てもらうものであって見せつけるものではない。さっさとどけ。
It wasn't difficult to see why Ito was desperate to escape. I couldn't imagine him as part of such a display. What should I do? I feel like it's rude to intrude.
雪村君、こんなところでどうかしたのか?
Oh, Yamazaki. Hello. I heard that Matsumoto was here. Yamazaki didn't look like he was in the mood to tolerate my snooping, so he went to the point.
なるほど。松本先生に何か話があるようだな。君のことはある程度聞いている。事情はおおよそ分かった。だが、診察がなかなか終わらないようだ。俺に任せてくれるか?
Yes, the answer is yes. Are you sure? Then, yes, please do so.
分かった。少し待っていてくれ。
Yamazaki went over to Dr. Matsumoto.
松本先生、軽い症状のものなら俺が代わりに見ます。そろそろ休憩してはどうですか?
Ah, okay, that's why I said Matsumoto Sensei, because I heard Yamazaki say that, so I just fucking copied. Fuck.
ではそうさせてもらおうか。
I waited outside for Matsumoto Sensei until he stepped out of the examination room. Sumimasen. He looked at me for a moment, his eyes narrowed in curiosity.
薬の補充も兼ねて休憩にしようか。君、ちょっと手伝ってくれるかね。
Oh, yes, of course. What luck. Matsumoto Sensei.
松本先生、雪村君。
I guess we can also blame Kondo as well. Oh, hi Kondo.
おお、早速会えたようだな。
はい、おかげさまで。感謝しております。
What? I was utterly shocked, lost. Matsumoto Sensei laid a gentle hand on my shoulder.
私は君に会うためにここに来たんだよ。高堂さんの娘さんがここに身を寄せていると近藤さんが教えてくれたんだ。
Oh, I see.
高堂さんと松本先生が懇意にしていたことは俺も知っていたからな。何か高堂さんの手がかりになればと思い、松本先生が今日に戻ってすぐに連絡を取った。
The Shinsengumi had their own reasons for wanting my father found, but Matsumoto Sensei's appearance was still cause for joy. Thank you, both of you. They smiled. Matsumoto Sensei then explained that he had just barely missed me when he left for Edo as I came to Kyoto. He had received all my letters, but once he finally returned, he had no idea where I was, and consequently couldn't find me.
すれ違いだったとはいえ、辛い思いをさせてしまったようだ。君がここにいる事情は分かっておるよ。何か不自由なことはないかね。
No, I'm doing all right. So, Matsumoto Sensei, about my father. His face took on a grim cast, and before he even spoke, I knew what his response would be.
残念ながら、私も高堂さんの居場所は知らないんだ。
そっか. The defeated tone of my voice surprised me. I suppose on some level I'd believe Matsumoto Sensei had some miraculous revelation about my father. Foolish of me, of course, but that didn't make the truth any less devastating. Kondo simply nodded.
君はここにいることで、あの薬に関わってしまったようだね。あの薬、つまり高堂さんが新選組で行っていた研究のことについてだが。
Yes, I knew what he meant. The experiments my father conducted with some strange concoction that could make people go mad. Please, tell me about it. I want to know everything my father was doing. He nodded.
高堂さんが幕命を受け、新選組で行っていたのは羅刹を生み出す実験だった。羅刹とはすなわち鬼神のごとき力と驚異的な治癒能力を持つ人間のことだ。
Rasetsu. This term seemed so familiar. Then I realized I overheard some of the men talking about it.
そうじ。めったなこと言うもんじゃねえ。幹部が羅刹になってどうするんだよ。
ああ、羅刹ってのは薬を飲んだら怪我も治っちまう。羅刹っていうのはかわいそうな子たちのことだよ。
そしてその羅刹を生み出したのは落ち水という薬だ。これは西洋ではエリクサー、中華では先端と呼ばれるものに値する。つまるところ不老不死の霊薬みたいなものだ。
Furies, water of life. It sounded more like something from a fairy tale rather than real life. But there was something in Matsumoto Sensei's tone of voice that said he was telling the truth. I already heard about how it makes you strong and hard to kill. But doesn't it cause so much pain that it makes most people go crazy? And even if you survive that, then even the smell of blood can make you go crazy again. Matsumoto Sensei nodded slowly, then pinched the bridge of his nose and with thumb and forefinger. He looked very tired. They were human, but not human. Perhaps they were almost entirely different now? I couldn't see how this water of life could ever be used for good. Even if it had healed Sun and Sun's arm, he'd suffer greatly in the process. Why? It sounded more like a moan than a question. My father would never want to ruin the life of another, but because of what he'd done, people suffered, and some even died. Why was my father doing this? But it wasn't just my father. I was sure no one involved expected such a terrible outcome.
だからこそ両親の呵責に耐えかねた行動さんはここを去ったんだろう。
しかし、あれは幕府が新選組の人材不足を補うために授けてくださった知恵でもあるのです。
The doctor only shook his head.
あの計画は失敗だ。行わない方がいい。幕府も見切りをつけているはずだ。
Kondo frowned, perhaps unhappy that Dr. Matsumoto would question the shogunate's original decision.
あの薬を飲んだ大使たちがどうなったか、近藤さんもよく知ってるだろう。あの計画は人道的に決して許されるもんじゃない。
Kondo gave a non-committal grunt and fell silent. I was sure Kondo-san knew just how dangerous it was to use the water of life, but the shogunate had come to him with a request. Perhaps he couldn't refuse, even if he wanted to. Silence fell like a thick blanket.
たとえ将軍公の御殿医を務めておられる方のお言葉といえど、大使でもない方に口を差し挟まれる筋合いはありません。
Sanan-san! His face was pale as moonlight, as if he was a walking corpse. Is it okay for you to be up right now?
三男君、休んでいた方がいいのではないか。顔色が悪いぞ。
ご心配なく。
He bowed quickly, his mouth a compressed line, and turned to regard the doctor with a cool gaze.
我々は我々の裁量で例の薬を有効に活用させていただいています。
しかし危険だ。あの薬は人が扱えるような代物じゃない。
研究は続いています。そしてこの私という成功例もあります。
As Sanan did indeed prove, it was possible to drink the water of life and retain your sanity. It just wasn't easy.
一見平気そうに見えるかもしれんが、体のどこかに相当無理をかけていることも考えられるぞ。
私は至って健康ですよ。今後も研究と改良を重ねれば薬の質が上がるのは明白です。
そのためにさらに多くの大使を犠牲にするつもりかね。成功するかどうかもわからん実験に大使を付き合わせるのは生命を冒涜しているとしか思えんが。
彼らは我々の礎となったのです。無駄死にではありません。
しかしだな。
まあまあ、松本先生も三男君も落ち着いて。この話は後日改めてということにしないか。
It was my private opinion that they were unlikely to agree, no matter what time they discussed the subject, but I felt it was polite to keep quiet.
そうだな。わかった。
There seemed to be very little common ground between them, but both arguments had merit. Kondo had likely seen this as well, and he chose to end things before it got unpleasant.
近藤さんがそうおっしゃるのであれば。
Sanansa's face betrayed nothing of what he might be thinking, even when the corner of his mouth quirked up into the beginning of a smile. He bowed quietly and left as swiftly as he arrived.
そういえば先生、健康診断の方はどうでしたかな。
ああ、それなんだがな。頭を抱えたよ。
え、それは一体なぜ？
なぜも何も。怪我人や病人を合計したら全大使の3分の1近くになるじゃないか。
What?
なんと。
なんとじゃないぞ近藤さん。あんたらは今まで何をやってたんだ。切り傷から渋り腹まで。この豚書は病の見本市だぞ。
面目ない。まさかそんなことになっていたとは。
まずは病室を用意してそこに病人を運び込んでくれ。それから豚書を清潔にしてもらわんと話にならん。
承知しました。すぐに取り掛かります。
So, we were ordered to clean the entire compound.
ったく、何なんだよ大掃除って。俺は掃除とか整理整頓がこの世で一番嫌いなのによ。
ぐちゃぐちゃ言ってないで、さっさとそこのタンスを持ち上げてくれって。散々自慢してた体力を披露するいい機会じゃねえか。うわー、ネズミが出た。
落ち着け。大事はない。
No, it is a big deal, Saito. It's a rat.
どうやらそこにある握り飯を餌にしていたようだな。
本当だ。誰だよ、食い残しの握り飯をこんなところに隠してたやつ。
まったく。なぜ私がこのような雑用に駆り出されなければならんのだ。そもそも私は軍略が専門だというのに。
いいじゃねえか。いつも自慢してる甲州流なんちゃらでパパッと終わらせてくれ。
黙れ。私の甲州流軍学はこのようなくだらぬ役目のためにあるものではない。
原田も人が悪いな。こいつが盲信してる時代遅れの兵法なんてこのご時世掃除の役にも立たないだろう。
ミキ君、言葉に気をつけたまえ。確かに洋楽には劣るかもしれんが、甲州流軍学は決して時代遅れではなく。
近藤さんだ。
近藤局長、ご覧ください。先ほどまで足の踏み場もないほどだった部屋が私の指導でここまで。局長は
Takeda realized Kondo was nowhere to be seen, and he glared at Harada.
引っかかりやがった。
原田、貴様、測ったな。
ぶつくさ文句言ったり、ペコペコしたり、怒ったり、忙しいなあんたも。そうやって相手によってコロコロ態度変えてて、 疲れねえか。
Hi, everyone. I washed the rags. Please use this when you wipe the floor.
あありがとうよ。
Despite being upset because of chore duty, the men swiftly cleaned the room as a team. Matsumoto Sensei came the next day to inspect the cleanliness of the compounds.
まあまあ綺麗になったじゃないか。
だろ、この筋肉は飾りじゃねえって先生もようやく分かってくれたみてえだな。
人を動かすという点に関しては軍略も掃除もさして変わりませぬゆえ。
あんた文句言ってただけだろう
でも掃除は一日休んでたんだろ。ずるいよな、みんな頑張ってる時に。しょうがないじゃない、土方さんが過保護なんだから。
お前が変な咳するからだろうが、養生しねえからいつまでも治らねえんだよ。
しかしやはりこうして片付いていると気分がいいものです。
まあな、一枚たもんだ。これはこれで悪くね
な。よし、これからは毎日掃除するか。
おう、頼んだぜ平助。
なんで俺だけなんだよ。体力自慢の新発さんが真っ先に働くべきだろ。
I'll help too, Heisuke.
そっか。そんじゃ明日から二人で頑張ろうな。新発さんなんて放っておいて。
おいおい、ちょっと待てって。誰もやらねえとは言ってねえだろ。
お、そこにまだゴミがあるじゃねえか。ちょうどいい、捨ててこい新八。
いや、だから明日からだろなあ平助。
片付けたそばから暴れるな。誇りが立つ。
Tch. I was enjoying the banter when I noticed something. I could just see Okita and Matsumoto Sensei outside, walking off somewhere together. Where could they be going, I wonder? Unfortunately, we don't get to know, just like Kazuma's route. It's not of our business. I was worried for Okita, but if he'd be fine so long as Matsumoto Sensei was with him. After the excitement wound down, I excused myself and went back to work. I was outside, sweeping, bamboo broom in hand, when he appeared. Don't come any closer! His voice was so deep that it felt as if it were exhumed from the depths of the earth, cowering me. Slowly, I turned around. Kazuma! His face was a mixture of surprise and sneering disgust as he looked down at me through cold eyes. I held the broom in both hands like a staff and stepped into what I hoped was a fighting stance. What are you doing here? He laughed with disdain, snorting at my weapon. His tone was mocking, but his eyes were like two chips of ice. This was a dangerous man. What was I to do? I could hardly face him alone. My father? I was staring at him, stunned by his statement. If you're talking about Kodo Yukimura, then yes, he is my father. At first he seemed surprised, but then he wore a malicious grin, as if he became privy to everything. Why are you asking about my father? I lowered the broom, my situation temporarily forgotten when...
敵地に単独で忍び入るか。俺たちも舐められたもんだぜ。
Hijikata-san!
昼間っから何しに来やがった。女を口説くにはまだ早い時間だぜ。
こいつに近づくんじゃねえ。
原田平介。
庭掃除にしちゃ切羽詰まった声が聞こえたからな。
大丈夫か？怪我してねえか？
Don't worry about me, I'm fine.
そうして群れる様は犬猫のごとくだ。
ほざいてやがれ。
I could feel the tension rising by the second, but it was Kazuma who attempted to cut through it.
遊んで欲しければ相手をしてやらぬでもないが、あいにく今日は用事を済ませに来ただけだ。それからこれは忠告だ。ただの人間を鬼に作り変えるのはやめておけ。
What? Humans into demons? Was he talking about the water of life?
てめえには関係ねえ。
おう、白昼堂々と女を襲うようなゲスの言い分なんざ聞く耳持たねえな。
この俺が情けをかけて忠告してやっているという部をわきまえずに生きり立つか。弱い犬ほどよく吠えるとはよく言ったものだな。
ここは俺らの領分だ。オタクを並べてないでとっとと帰りやがれ。
He looked away from the captains as if entirely uninterested in them, and flashed a cold gaze to me.
行動はこちら側に。意味はわかる。お前の父は幕府を見限ったということだ。
What? His mysterious smile gave me nothing in the way of explanation.
お前がここにいる意味は何だ。よく考える。
Then, with a slow rippling motion, like a shadow sliding on ground, he turned his back and vanished. What was happening? What were demons, and why had they come after me? My father was with them? On their side, he must have meant. Did that mean he was working with imperialists? The inside of my head was a swirling mass of questions and doubts, but the one thing that most concerned me was... who were these men who called themselves demons? What are these demons?
奴らが何者かはわからねえ。普通の人間じゃねえのは間違いねえ。今までそれなりの数の相手と切り合ってきたが、あれほどの強さを持った奴とは会ったことがねえ。むしろ鬼だって言われた方がまだ納得できるぜ。
Kazuma and his companions clearly had strength and skill far beyond that of most men. I could even say that if they were to go against a wild boar or wolf, they'd still defeat them.
土方さんに鬼呼ばわりされるってことは、こりゃ本物かもしれねえな。
だよな。鬼副長が認めた鬼だもんな。
うるせえ、黙ってろ。俺は真面目に話してんだよ。
Their playful argument was familiar ground, but it was a small beacon against the darkness. I felt myself relax, and a sigh of relief found its way through me. From then on, Matsumoto-sensei visited the compound regularly to check up on the men of the Shinsengumi. Ever since Sanan-san had become the leader of the Furies, the group was named as the Fury Corps. Still, I couldn't help but wonder, was it really alright to continue researching the Furies? My heart was heavy with worry. Without him, the Shinsengumi would be nothing. We would cease to exist. If so, why? It's now April 1866. April 1866. Relations between the shogun and Chosu were turning sour quickly. The shogunate began gathering forces with the intent of asserting dominance in the domain. It later became known as the Second Chosu Expedition. Although it didn't directly affect the Shinsengumi, Kondo and Ito were called to accompany the shogunate's envoy on its way to the west region. With the sheath gone, Hijikata assumed charge of the Shinsengumi. Soon after, unrest grew amongst the Shinsengumi men, who were becoming frustrated with Hijikata-san's strict leadership.
くそん、何なんだよ最近の土方さんは。前にも増して口うるさくなりやがって。
だよな。さっきもさ、ちょっと外に出ようとしただけで行き先を根掘り葉掘り聞かれちまって。
ま、近藤さんがいねえ間に問題でも起きちまったら大事だしな。土方さんもいろいろ考えてるんじゃねえのか。
そうか。例えば伊藤さんとかその取り巻きには何も言わねえじゃねえか。長い付き合いだからって俺たちのことを軽く見てるんじゃねえのか。
Nagakura frowned and let his back fall onto the floor with a thump. He sat there for some time, staring at the ceiling before he spoke again. Nagakura, are you okay, buddy?
よし、決めた。これから島原に繰り出すぞ。支度しろ。
What? Right now? Hijikata had been quite clear about how he felt regarding nighttime escapades.
当たり前だろ。坊さんじゃあるまいし、寺の中に閉じこもってられるかよ。せっかくの夜だってのに。大使どもも誘ってやらなきゃな。土方さんがあんなだから外出しにくくてむくれてるだろうし。
With that, he disappeared. Oh god, Nagakura!
とりあえずついてってあいつを見張っといた方が良さそうだな。相当鬱憤が溜まってるみてえだから。
Yes, he does. Harada turned and looked straight at me with an eyebrow pointedly raised. Wait, you mean me?
見張り役として頼むぜ。
Is this a good idea? Oh god. Nagakura returned with a number of men in tow, and we headed out into the city. You know where we're going? I'm pretty sure we're going to Shimabara. We're going to the red light district, I'm pretty sure. He drank sake by the gallon, and before long he was in much better mood. Maybe not the red district, but somewhere. Oh, hello.
よーし、もう一軒行くぞ、もう一軒。全部俺のおごりだからな。向こうにうまい酒出す店があるんだよ。
Are we bar hopping? Yes, this is the game I was talking about. I think we're bar hopping. Oh god, Nagakura, why?
ありがとうございます、組長。しかし、いいんですか？我々を連れ出したことで、後で副長に何か言われたりは。
いいって俺が責任取るから。ブーブー言ってこれようだったら直談判して時伏せてやがれ。
Yeah, I'm having fun. I've never seen this scene before.
さすが長倉組長。どこまでもお供しますよ。
Although some of them seemed nervous, Nagakura's good humor and generosity had buoyed words? The spirits of the warriors significantly. Although none of them had the courage to say it, I began to suspect that Nagakura wasn't the only person tiring of Hijikata-san's strict rules.
なあ、新八さん。もうすぐ門限だし、そろそろ帰らねえとやばいんじゃねえの。な
あ、門限？そんなの。マジマジ。
で、
無視って。破ったら切腹だぞ。
面白いや。切腹でも何でも命じてもらおうじゃねえか。できるもんならな。
Nagakura. I wasn't sure if it was the alcohol, but whatever it was, Nagakura wasn't listening to Heisuke. I'm doing fine. I think after this scene is over, I'm going to take a break and go eat some dinner, and then we'll come back with Splatoon 3. Nagakura? He turned to look at me.
もちろん一緒に来てくれるよね。
Oh shit. Guide says. We shouldn't! No, of course I'm not. We can't break curfew.
だけどよ。
I know Hijikata-san wouldn't want to make you kill yourself over something like this, but I don't think he's going to back down either. I could feel several pair of eyes on me, and I suddenly became very aware that I was lecturing a man twice my size with 4 times my strength. I mean, Nagakura's fucking buff. As he said himself, he's a beefcake. You two have known each other for a long time, right? You're friends. Don't think about the rules. Think about your friend. Yeah.
そっか。まあ、そうだよな。あの人が俺を死なせたがってるはずねえよな。
Behind him, I saw Heisuke and Harada let out silent sighs of relief.
そうだよ。なんだかんだで土方さんとは腐れ縁だしな。
よし、そんじゃあ帰るか。急げば門限に間に合うだろう。
Nobody was anxious to incur Hijikata-san's wrath, so our exodus was swift. Before we began to move, however, Nagakura turned and bent down close to me.
あのよ。ありがとな、止めてくれて。
What?
いや、俺ってよ、一旦コード決めたら、周りを見ねえで突っ走っちまうところがあるから。さっき、ああ言ってくれなかったら、本気で引っ込みつかなくなっちまってたと思うんだ。だから、すげえ助かった。ありがとな。
Oh. It was nothing. I'm glad I could help. It was much harder to write off someone you've known well for years, even if you often disagree. In his heart, Nagakura had no real desire to hurt Hijikata-san, and I was certain that sentiment went the other way as well. Unfortunately, when we got back to headquarters, oh no. It was already long past curfew.
どうなるんだ。もしかして俺たち本当に腹を詰めさせられちまうのか。
んなことにはさせねえよ。誘ったのは俺なんだし、切腹させられるとしたら俺だけだろ。
だけどそれじゃあ。
いいんだよ。こんなくだらねえことで腹詰めさせられるようなら、俺も新選組に未練なんてねえしな。
Nagakura. He seemed oddly unconcerned for a man who might be about to die. I didn't know what I could say to him, so I just watched as he walked off.
とりあえず行こうぜ。平気だって。シンパチを見殺しにしたりはしねえからよ。
Mm. At Harada's urging, we followed Nagakura toward the hall. Oh god. Hijikata-san was waiting for us, looking furious. Oh god!
ずいぶん帰りが遅えんだな。門限破りは切腹だと前々からきつく言ってあるはずだが。
I could see some of the other warriors going pale as they looked nervously at one another.
無理やり誘ったのは俺だ。こいつらには何の責任もねえよ。
シンパチー。それを決めるのはお前じゃん。誘ったのが誰だろうが、大気を破ったことに変わりはねえだ。
I skipped the line. Whoops. For several long, tense seconds, Hijikata-san and Nagakura glared at one another.
あのさ、土方さん、俺たちも悪かったんだよ。早く帰ろうってもっと早く新発さんに言っておけばこんな。
Hijikata-san's eyes pulled away from Nagakura's and dragged across the rest of us like a sheet of fire.
てめえらは部屋に戻ってろ。サタは追ってくだす。
だけどさ。
戻ろうぜ、平介。
なんでだよ。佐野さんは新発さんが腹切らされることになってもいいのか。
Harada didn't answer, nor even looked at Heisuke. He just stared into Hijikata-san's eyes deeply. Then he grabbed Heisuke by the arm and began to haul him bodily from the room.
お前も来い。
I braved one furtive look back over my shoulder at Nagakura as we walked away. From where I was, I couldn't see his face. Once we reached the hallway out of the sight of Hijikata-san, Harada stopped. Then very quietly, we moved toward the sliding door. He only pressed an index finger to his lips, telling me to be quiet. Then he leaned up close to the door, listening intently to what was happening on the other side. I moved up next to the door as well and followed suit, as did Heisuke.
で、どうしろって。今さら死ぬのが怖いってこともねえから、言うんならすっぱり言っちまってくれよ。
Hijikata-san sighed.
俺のやり方に不満があるんだ。お前がそういう態度を取るときって、いつもそうだったよな。
This wasn't the tone he'd used. This wasn't the tone he'd used giving orders to the other warriors. Back in Edo, before the move to Kyoto, he probably spoke in that way all the time.
なんつうかあんた。つうか、近藤さんもそうなんだけどよ。俺たちにだけやたらと厳しすぎじゃねえか。確かに俺らは弁が立つわけじゃねえし、偉い知り合いがいるわけでもねえ。俺なんて剣術しかねえけどよ。だけど新選組がここまで大きくなったのは俺たちが死ぬ思いで戦ってきたからだろ。少なくとも俺はそう思ってるぜ。なのに新しく入ってきた大使どもを優遇して昔からいる俺たちを軽く見るっていうのは違うんじゃねえか。
For a long time, Hijikata-san was silent. Then, when he finally spoke, Nagakura gasped incredulously to his apology. Oh, I hope I said that word right. As he was trying to find his footing again, Hijikata-san continued.
お前らに甘くしてるとな、いろいろ言いたがる奴がいるんだよ。 古株ばっか重用してるとか、ひいきしてるとか、給金に色つけてるとか、くだらねえことをな。お前らがいい金もらってんのは、俺たちと昔からの付き合いがあるせいだなんて言われたくねえだろ。ただまあ、必要ねえことまであれこれ口出しちまったのは悪かった。
Nagakura was silent. When he finally spoke, I could hear a bitter smile in his voice.
かなわねえな、あんたには。もしここで大気がどうの、幹部としての自覚がどうのって説教されたら、すぐにここを飛び出しちまうつもりだったのに。そんな風に昔の頃みてえに言われちゃ納得するしかねえもんな。
Damn it, I did it again. I heard him scratch his head.
俺も悪かったよ。ふてくされて大人げねえ真似しちまって。そのうちまた酒でも飲みに行こうぜ。土方さんでも飲めそうな酒を見つけとくからよ。
余計な世話だよ。俺はな、飲めねえわけじゃなくて飲まねえだけなんだ。
They talked a little longer, about nothing really. Then Nagakura stood up and walked towards us. We started to back away. Ah, shit.
なんだよ。まさか今の話聞いてやがったのか。
I know what the sound is. Back to this.
そりゃあな。お前のことだから売り言葉に買い言葉で腹切っちまうんじゃねえかって心配してたんだ。
何言ってんだ。若い時に本当に腹詰めたのはお前じゃねえか。
Harada and Heisuke looked at one another, relieved, and headed back towards their rooms. As I watched them go, I heard Nagakura mumble something to himself.
こういうことがあるから嫌なことがあっても見切りをつけるってことができないんだよな。
What?
実際近藤さんとか土方さんが偉くなって変わっちまったんなら何の未練もなくやめちまうんだけどよ。さっきの土方さんみたいに昔と全然変わってねえところも残ってるから。だからここを離れられねえんだ。
I could see nostalgia in Nagakura's eyes as he turned and looked back towards Hijikata-san. There was no mistake how deep their bond was. Compared to the length of time they'd known one another, my time with the Shinsengumi barely amounted to anything. I see what you mean. If the Shinsengumi fell apart, I'd be devastated. So in a way, I thought I understood how he felt.
ま、いろいろ面倒なことも多いけど、これから先もずっと一緒にいられるといいな。みんなでさ。
Shit's going up upstairs again. Me too. I meant every word I said. Nagakura is our boy. Ow! Right, so we're gonna stop there. It is almost the end of the chapter, but I need food. After the dust cleared following the Hamaguri rebellion, the shogun set about cleaning house. Save! Does that load? Okay. Back to title. So, I'll leave that there. I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream, take a break, and then come back, alright? We're gonna be doing some Splatoon 3, and then once the Splatfest has ended in almost 2 hours, we're gonna continue art time, because why not? Alright, I'll see you guys later.